Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quantum Recovery Podcast. I'm Andeea. I am your host, and I am actually revisiting episode 21, The Frequency of Clothing. And this is why. I got a message from a guy named Guy from Israel, and I want to just thank him for bringing this to my attention. So he sent me an article from a man, Bill Harrison. I will link it in the show notes. Basically, this person took that article that I broke down in episode 21 about the frequency of clothing, and he called out some inconsistencies. And definitely there are inconsistencies in that article, and I want everyone aware of them. And I also want you to know I would never talk about anything on here that's not backed by research and science. There is definitely research backing, and I will put one of the articles in the show notes, but I'll leave it on you to go out and search for more information about linen and the healing properties of it. If you want to go back and listen to all of the benefits of natural fibers and all of that, listen to episode 21. But in that episode, I am breaking down Heidi Yellen's article, which I found value in. But he found some inconsistencies in the numbers. He talks about the measurements. He's a scientist. I am first to admit, I am not like scientist. I don't know physics. I know a little bit, but I definitely wasn't trained in that. I am a licensed counselor and a applied quantum biology coach. And this was very meaningful for this person to reach out to me and tell me about the inconsistencies in there. Now, that does not change my opinion of natural fibers. They are 100% better than the synthetics out there. And the things that we're wearing that are synthetic are made of plastic. They're made of polyurethane. They are made of things that contain forever chemicals. They're not good, especially when we're sweating. Some of the clothing actually off gases for life. So we want to be mindful of the things that we're putting on our skin. And when you go, or I should say when I go down my health journey, I'm doing all of these things. Of course, I'm going to want what touches my skin to be the best of the best. Okay. So I still believe that wearing natural fibers, like hands down, is the best. And I break down all the benefits. So go back to episode 21 if you want to listen to that. But this announcement today, this podcast today, is really to shed light on the fact that I broke down that article and it does contain inconsistencies. And I wanted to call that out because I would never misguide you. And I also was really grateful that somebody sent me that and brought it to my attention. Because this is the thing. It's still it actually this is the thing. It serves me to feel like my clothing has a frequency that serves me. That's a belief that serves me. If it's a belief that serves you, I would say keep it. Now, there was an inconsistency in the measurements that Bill calls out, angstroms and hertz and things like that. I don't I don't know. I still believe that natural fibers are going to hold a higher frequency than synthetic ones, and that is what I want to point out. So from an applied quantum lens, we do want to wear natural fibers because everything that touches our skin is seeping into our skin, and natural fibers are, and he does make a point to say that they are better. So he's not like, being a negative Nancy through the whole entire article. And I just really appreciate both of these people and wanted to make sure that you all know that that is not the end all be all article, but it is the article that he points out many companies are using to sell their clothing. They are using that article to say certain things to sell, which is going to happen in this day and age. They're going to use anything that is going to make you think that it is better. Of course that of course that companies are going to do that. But we want to be mindful of companies that greenwash things, like viscose and other man-made processed fibers as being natural. When I say natural fibers, I'm talking about linen, I'm talking about hemp, I'm talking about 100% organic cotton. I'm talking about wool, yak, goat, cashmere, all of the fibers that are natural that come from an animal or a plant are going to be okay for our skin. And that's really the point. I'm not talking about, let's say, bamboo silk. I'm not talking about viscose. I'm not talking about rayon. I'm not talking about any of those materials that are now marketed as being natural. They're highly, highly processed, and those are not the things that I'm talking about. Now, I also want to talk about another thing. So this week I did a episode with Mawish Syed, and we were talking about all sorts of things, but we were talking about things through the chemical lens and also through the energy lens. And things in our homes can bioaccumulate in our body. And I'm talking about toxins here. And of course, we don't want our clothing contributing to that. Now, another thing that I want you to know is I have a lot of recommendations on my website for things that will help you along your journey. However, I always promote doing everything that you can for free. But for instance, you're going to listen to this and you're going to be like, well, I wonder what brands she buys that meet her standards, because that's the first thing I thought of when my coach told me this. I was like, well, what do I buy now? What brands are they? They are all listed on my website. That's why the recommendation page exists. It's a resource for you. I am not an affiliate of every single one of those resources. They are just resources I have found to be helpful for me. And when I listen to my body, I feel good with all of those things. Now, there are times where being in this quantum realm, I actually bought a bag that was made out of, it was part synthetic material, and this bag blocks non-native EMFs. I needed a laptop bag. I could not find a organic one. If anybody knows of one, please put a comment in the show notes. I could not find an organic. I wanted like an organic canvas bag that was lined with the silver, and I just could not find it. I'm gonna have to make it myself, I guess. So I bought something that was the cost of me touching that bag, which I don't touch all the time. Mostly it sits. I actually use it for travel. That bag is serving a purpose way higher than me hanging on to the bag. So what do I mean by this? The fact that it's blocking the non-native EMFs from penetrating my body and causing cellular dehydration is outweighing the cost of me holding on to the bag and it being a synthetic. So I'm not sweating with that bag. It's not, do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes we will have to break our value code, which I've had to do because I can't find anything that is on the market that exists yet, because this is a very new science. It's a paradigm shift. I definitely am seeing a lot more blue blockers. I'm actually seeing people wearing blue blockers outside. You do not ever want to wear blue blockers outside. You actually want to take in that beautiful light. Anyway, all to say, I know that people are going to think that these things are trendy or a fashion statement or whatnot. But the things that we are buying for our health journey, they very much matter. I'm very conscious of what I bring into my energy now. I want every single thing that's natural. So in my conversation with Mawish, I actually used my bookshelf behind me as an example. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can obviously see what I'm talking about. If you're listening to this and you've never watched me on YouTube, I'm always sitting at my desk in front of a window that behind me, I have my bookshelf. So I was telling her how thinking this way, being really mindful consumer, and the fact that I have shifted to natural fibers, naturally dyed things and all of that, I have been really conscious about my purchases, and it has brought a level of minimalism into my life. However, I studied minimalism actually before I was introduced to my toxin-free coach. And one of the things that they made a point to say is that if that something brings you joy or is important in your life, it is okay to have that. Books are very important in my life. I love books. They keep me away from watching blue lit screens at night. They have, I believe, a much better information for me personally. I love them, and for the books I need to reference, I keep them. Now, they're also sitting on a shelf that doesn't meet my value system standards anymore. However, I can't change everything all at once, and I know most people can't. And actually, I would never recommend people changing everything all at once because there has to be behaviors that are in place first. But when it comes to my point here, the bookshelf, I just have not gotten the extra funds where I'm ready to make that shift. So I'm not going to be wasteful. It's going to serve its purpose until it doesn't anymore, and I'm able to switch it out. All to say, we don't want to judge people on their journeys. There are going to be lots of shifts that you make. Like I'm just thinking about right now my closet because I'm revisiting this clothing and frequency conversation. There are things in my closet that are synthetic, that are still a mix, especially a couple of my suit coats because I need them for my full-time job. And I'm not gonna, unless I can find a natural, when I run into that natural version, I will swap it, but I'm also not going to be wasteful. And the clothes that I do have likely done a lot of off-gassing already. And I also wear a lot of vintage, so definitely that is better than buying something new that's got the synthetic blends in it. So it is a journey. It's not all going to happen overnight, but 100%. A huge point of me sharing that message was I thought it was fun that she had measured the frequency. And even if the measurements were inconsistent, I still think it's fun. I still think it's a fun topic, even though he pointed out the inconsistencies, which I'm appreciative of because I don't have that science, that much of a science eye, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I wouldn't have been able to point those things out. But there is research that linen is healing. There is a lot of benefits from wearing like wool opposed to, a synthetic insulated polyester jacket, for instance. So all to say, you be curious. Definitely don't take my word. Also, always look stuff up. I give you a jumping point always in the show notes, and I am building a resource library specifically with research that is highlighting what I talk about, but mostly addiction through a quantum lens. So this is a ever-growing thing that I'm not ready to share yet because it's just not built out how it needs more, and I'm working on it. But all to say, like, I'm always going to give you a jumping point, and then I encourage you go into PubMed or do your own research on natural fibers. I gave you a lot of resources in episode 21 of books that you can read. Fiber Shed being one of them, To Die For by Alden Wicker to be one of them. Trying to think of some other ones. There was a natural dye book by Sasha Dwyer. Go back and look at that. There's also a lot more other books out there, especially if you're into fiber or you're a knitter or you make your own clothes, there are a lot of resources as far as, yarn books and things that are going to be helpful if that's helpful for you. So, always listen to your body, always be curious. I hope that this was helpful, and I yeah, it serves me to believe that my natural fiber clothes and the money that I'm spending consciously and the clothing items that I bring into my energy, that I bring into my closet are holding a higher frequency than a synthetic piece. I don't really care what the number is. So the inconsistency in that number, it's okay with me. It might not be okay with you. You might be like, well, Andeea, I really want the solid evidence. I would actually love to measure the frequency of clothing. That would be very cool. But the point of this podcast, the clothing, me sharing the clothing and my toxin-free journey is something that's near and dear to my heart. And it does make, it makes sense to talk about it because it's touching our skin, and it does have to do like there's a quantum level to everything. But the biggest pieces that I share also about light, about water and magnetism, all of that is very important as well. And this is just such a tiny topic compared to the grand scheme of things. So I hope that this helps you start shifting your wardrobe so it serves you and your family, and that it brings you joy. My clothing that's natural brings me so much joy. And it actually brings me freedom because everything that's naturally dyed matches. It's pretty crazy. I talked about that in the episode 21 because it has an undertone that just, I don't know, it goes with everything and it lessens my decision fatigue. It just brings such freedom and joy to my life. And those items that I do spend a little bit more money for because they're naturally dyed, for instance, and they're natural fibers, they last a lot longer than my old, like, fast fashion that I used to buy. Say also, as I share on here commonly, I had a major shopping addiction, and this has brought me freedom from that. That's no longer debilitating in my life, and I'm much more mindful of my purchases. And instead of getting all those short little dopamine hits, it has allowed me to reset my happiness, like my hedonic set point, and there's just so many levels that it's just brought joy to my life. Plus, I love fashion, and so now I get to look at it through the lens of nature. I and it's a topic that is really, really fascinating to me, and I feel like it is important for people to express themselves through their clothing. And it's a topic that I do care about, and it serves me to know that whatever the number might be, even if linen is not 5,000, it serves me to know that it's a better thing to wear than synthetics. So I hope that this has helped you. And if you weren't aware of the article before, definitely read it for yourself. Look at the linen study that I'm going to share in the show notes. There are many more studies around the topic of linen that do highlight that it serves us and that it does have healing properties. And it's because it's from nature. Nature always wins. We don't want to mess with Mother Nature. So, with that said, everybody, that is it. I will be sharing some information in the very near future, and you've already been seeing me share it on Instagram and on the Quantum Healthy podcast about the Circadian Rhythm Disruption Challenge. I will put a link to that in the show notes as well. It is free education about light that starts on October 20th, and I'll be doing an episode to break that down a little bit more for you. But for now, if you're so inclined, please do sign up. I'm an ambassador of this, and it is really near and dear to my heart to get this information out to as many people as possible. I also have a quantum recovery reset course. So if you want to work with me, that would be the best way to do it. And you will get access to me, and I'll be able to answer all your questions. I also encourage you to grab my free blue blocker guide. All of that is in the show notes. And yeah, so I'll talk to you all next week. Drink water. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found value in this information. And if you did, please share it. Another way to support the podcast is to leave a 5-star review. If you want to connect, you can message me on Instagram or email me at ANDEEARAE@outlook.com. And remember, drink water.